So can you take us through just a very short version of what that looks like? I mean,
Hmm.
the younger self, older self, and journaling or whatever we do
Okay.
with that.
Yeah.
Just
Um, so give me a trigger
uh,
or an annoyance or a
uh,
frustration.
okay. A trigger would be um, get over yourself.
Okay. Okay. And so then what I would do, I mean, we get you connected to resources. So there's some pre-work, like we're pretending you have a team of resources. We'd have you
Hmm.
connected
Hmm.
to the resources. Then I would invite that part forward. I'd say, I'd like to invite forward to approach the resources, the part connected or the part that believes that message, you just need to get over yourself. And when you're ready, tell me what you notice. And what we're looking for is parts arrive as an age, they arrive as a mood, an emotion, or they arrive as body physiology. So we're just looking to kind of get a hold of them. And then I get the parts, can you tell me your age? Can you tell me what mood you're in? And then I'll say, do you see the resources? Do they look good to you? Do the resources understand why you're feeling angry or whatever the feeling is, why you're feeling what you're feeling, why you're believing what you're believing? And it's usually a yes. And even if it's a no, it's like, do the resources want to understand? So the part's getting an experience of these attuned resources that really want to be there for her. And then from there, we get the story. So it's like, say that part was 10 years old. So 10-year-old, tell me your story. What was going on for you? Where you developed this belief or where you were feeling these feelings. And
Yeah.
then the part will just start telling the story. And it may be historically accurate, it may not be. It doesn't really matter. What we're looking for is emotional accuracy. Like we're looking for a story that matches the internal experience. And the good news is a person doesn't have to be historically accurate or chronologically accurate. The story is the part expressing what's true for them. and then and then they get a lot of validation and empathy and compassion from the resource.
Do you get them to breathe first, or do you meditate first before you can to get to that place? Because it's not easy to get to that place
Mm-hmm.
from my experience. So how
Yeah.
do you get them to relax into stepping into that?
Well, what's interesting is, and I think what's helpful is that the adult self kind of is sitting on the back burner, being a reporter out of the experience. So this is an intentional dissociation. We're asking the adult to step back and the part to step forward. And then we're talking directly to the part, and she's got things to say. Like the parts, and if they don't, they'll tell you, like, get lost. Like they'll be very clear if they don't want to talk to you. But the parts have the story. The adult doesn't always have the story, doesn't know what the connection is. That's what's really wild and really powerful about the work. So I haven't found a lot of need to do relaxation or breath work to get somebody ready to do this. It's in the process of inviting forward the parts. They're coming to tell you what's going on or what they don't like about whatever it is.
So when you work with someone or with couples, do you know which modality you want to use? I mean, it's because it may not, which modality you're bringing in here, because you
Yeah.
have the EMDR, you have the deep, and I want to know what deep brain.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that. So, yes, I kind of do a little triage in my brain about, so there's a differentiation that I make between trauma of bad things that happen and attachment wounding of good things that didn't happen. So, trauma processing can take out the bad stuff, but it can't put in the good stuff. It's really helpful to get the bad stuff out of there, but it doesn't help a person kind of recapture what they didn't get. So the needs meeting work or the ego state work is going to help with that, being able to install the positive through it's relational. It's a relationship with the resources where these parts begin to understand that they're loved and they're valued, they're safe now, those kinds of things that they didn't know, that they didn't experience when the person was growing up. So that's one distinction that I like to make. Because right now everything is kind of identified as trauma, even attachment trauma, trauma, everything's identified as trauma. And not to say it isn't traumatic, but it's kind of like if everything's trauma, then we're going to think about doing desensitization work, trauma processing work. But there's this whole other area of we can actually meet those needs. We can actually heal the attachment wounds at a really deep level. And so that's what I make that distinction in my work with people.
So that's the deep. Oh, okay. That's the deep brain. I thought that's not part of it.
Deep brain reorienting kind of it kind of crosses both trauma and attachment. It's very interesting. I'm new to it. I'm in the process. I've been using it, training in it more deeply. It works. So the parts work. The Developmental Needs Meeting Strategy, and if people know about internal family systems, the IFS work, parts work is at the level of the limbic system. It's a higher cortical function of the brain, and where the emotions are and all of that. The deep brain reorienting work is done at the level of the brainstem, and it's done in a way that we're working with releasing the shock before the bad thing that happened. And that's more of it's not in the nervous system.
So say that again, releasing the
shock. The shock.
Before the actual trauma.
Yeah. So there's an area of the brain called the superior colliculi. I'm not a brain scientist, so I may get some of this wrong. But so the brainstem has this area that has layers to it. The outer layer, as I understand it, is the layer that helps us pick up things like spiders and snakes and mice, and like it's that we don't even see them before we sense them, and so the inner layers of that portion of the brain are more relationally astute and can pick up, like when you've walked into a room and you should turn around and walk out really quickly. Or, you go to somebody as a kid, say you're going to somebody who should scoop you in and they don't. They either do something that's abusive or they do something that's neglectful or hurtful. That shocks the system because we weren't expecting it. We had no reason to expect it. And so there's a pattern then in the body, that the body gets patterned with that shock. It exists beneath the layer of the story that we tell ourselves about it, the emotion that we have with it. And so the deep brain reorienting is about, I would say to think about it as releasing this stuff, whether it's trauma wounding or attachment wounding, at a very, very, very deep level. So it's a very interesting process. It's like a meditation. Like you go inward and you just kind of report out on what the body physiology is doing. And we don't go into the story. We don't go into the memory. We just stay with what's happening in the body, and it kind of unwinds. It's kind of a way of unwinding that. It's very powerful.
Wow. It sounds it. I'm going, my brain is going, I'm glad you gave those examples of going into a room and turning around when you don't no, this doesn't feel good. I'm out of here, So how you're just starting that, but do you know when you work with somebody, which one you're going to? It's intuitive, I guess, or maybe it's a combination, and where does the voice come in here?
So to answer that first question really quickly, there are people who just seem to be like the parts work seems to be built for them. They just really resonate with it. They can speak from it. There's other people who that is the most foreign concept. They don't get it. It's really hard. They don't have memory. They don't have memory. Like there's no memory prior to age 18, or they really don't want to talk about their parents. I mean, we are still really protective of people in our lives. And so for people like that, I think that the deep brain reorienting is really, really powerful. It actually was designed to help people who have trouble doing the trauma work kind of be able to do that in a more stabilizing kind of way. Just as the developmental needs meeting work, the attachment wounding work was designed to help people be able to do trauma processing work without getting blown out of the water. Because if we don't have a stability inside of us and we try to process trauma, it can actually make things worse. But what I've found is that these approaches are really helpful for people. Like I utilize some of this with people who are more of a coaching client because they're doing really well. They don't have a mental health diagnosis, but they have what I would call it's a human condition. Didn't get needs met. Like there's been some shock to the system. The world has been unkind. And it's really nice to be able to use these powerful techniques to help people so they're not stuck forever in this place of just trying to have these conversations with these little parts of themselves.
Yeah. Do you get triggered? Do you get triggered when you hear from your clients, when when they tell you some of their stories?
I have an enormous capacity for compartmentalization, honestly. And then I also use some techniques of tapping and some ways of if there's particular stories that hit and kind of get a little locked and they're disturbing, then I like to do some work to try to clear that out.
I know people do cleansing. I know coaches who do cleansing after people leave or talk or whatever.
Yeah. That I do that periodically through my rooms of where I'm working with people. Yeah, that can be helpful. Yeah.
And so you know what? Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Did you want to move on to talking about voice?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I want to invisible. Amy's invisible. Amy doesn't have a voice. So my voice I didn't speak. Literally. I had years where I would only speak if I was spoken to. Like I just didn't talk. And it might be a diagnosis. It might be like selective mutism. I don't know. I was never diagnosed, but that was the truth of what I went through. And as I grew and developed and learned and became a professional, like I needed to have a voice, and my voice was very monotone and very weak. And so one of the things I decided to do was, I will monetize this voice and I will learn clinical hypnosis. This is a very good voice I have for hypnosis. It's soft. People like it. They comment on it. It just had no power. So I couldn't be a really good leader, say in my workshops or in with a couple that was really fighting with one another. My voice was not going to carry the day with that. But funny, story is that like even in my workshops, I thought, I just need to get, a speaker and an amplifier and then people can hear me. But I quickly learned that amplifying a monotone voice it's still a monotone voice. It's just louder.
Yeah.
Still painful to listen to or boring, boring to listen to. So, and I was at this point in my career of really wanting to kind of like do some online programs, be bigger, do some bigger things, be in front of bigger audiences, things like that. And every time I got in front of a camera, it was like deer in the headlights. I dissociated, like words, like I can't connect with my thoughts. I'd have to have my name written out to be able to speak it if I had a camera on. It was excruciating. Honestly, it was excruciating. So much disconnect with myself. And I just happened by being in one program. I ended up meeting Roger Love, who's a voice coach. I know you know him. And I started taking his programs and really working with my voice. And it was excruciating. Like, it was really hard. I was very much a remedial student. I couldn't get it. My voice didn't want to, if my voice got any higher than my chest, it would go to screech. And that was really painful to listen to. And so it took a lot to kind of work through these seams of getting out of the chest voice and the middle voice and the head voice. And, but as I did, I was learning, like, it was a whole body experience, really, because I had to learn about my abdominal muscles, and I had to learn about breathing.
Yeah.
And I had to learn about relaxing and not forcing, and not letting my throat get sore by trying to do my warm-ups and things like that. And I was also learning about the voice from a trauma perspective and how trauma gets caught in the throat. And when we can't speak it. And there's so much of trauma that's unspeakable in so many ways. And so as I was learning how to use my voice, as I was learning how to tune the instrument of my voice, it's kind of like it began to open up, and it began to open up. And there was one day, and it just kind of like there was a release that happened. It was magical, really. And from that moment, it became a lot easier. I would say I still struggle with my voice. And if I don't do my warm-ups, I can really go back into monotone if I'm really tired. So I know that that's a thing, and I need to be aware of it. But it really feels like some of the last vestiges of trauma were really released with my voice and the work that I did with my voice. It was just that powerful, I would say. And, stepping into who I am. And it's not just voice, but visibility. The voice and visibility came side by side because I did so much of my voice work through the pandemic online. And then I had to see myself in the camera. And so I think those two things kind of went hand in hand, the voice and the visibility. And it was quite a journey.
No one would ever know that, my dear. No one would ever know that seeing you now. But, as you're saying that, I remember going to see a specialist because I thought this was somewhere around the time somewhere between 65 and 70. And I thought I was having trouble with my voice, and I was. And but I wouldn't do the exercises. I was just attributing it to aging. Even though I hadn't done any work, I know how to take care. And the first thing he said to me, have you had some trauma lately?
Wow. Good question.
Yes. And it was true. I hadn't put the two of them, I hadn't put the two things together, but yes. Yes, I had. People were dying. I was fighting with my partner. It was like just a whole lot of stuff going on, transitioning to my own visibility and age. I mean, it was just a lot, my child, all of that stuff. But I didn't know that because I'm a professional. I'm a vocal coach. What are you talking about, trauma? So it is very, very true. And once he told me that, and, we worked on releasing that, it was the same for me. At least I understood what the heck was going on, with me, and not just compartmentalize it and go, oh, this is, that has nothing to do with this. But it absolutely did. Absolutely did. So how do you use that with your clients now? Because with all of it, all these modalities that you have.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like a layering, and where do people want to go, and how deep do they want to go? And I would say the voice is almost the hardest for people. It's people are used to how they sound, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, and people don't like their voice. So but the idea of changing it, it's a very vulnerable. Like I felt the most vulnerable trying to make sounds for somebody else. Like it was a really vulnerable thing to be in my sessions with my
Trying to
voice
make
coach.
sounds. Say that. I
Yeah,
don't know.
making sounds, like doing my doing my vocal
Oh,
warm-ups in
warm-ups.
front of
Okay,
my
okay.
coach, or
Oh, I see. Okay, okay.
talking through what it was I wanted to say in a video or whatever it
Mm-hmm.
might be. There was whether that was a visibility piece or there was just
Mm-hmm.
something deeper, there was a lot of vulnerability there. And I've
Mm-hmm.
seen that with people. I think one of the people that I work with, like I'm never going to be an opera coach. I know that for opera singers. But what I do know is that for people that are really struggling with that level of voice and visibility, I
Mm-hmm.
think all of the trauma work, bringing all of that together, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that people will have a stutter, and that's trauma related as well. And so doing that kind of work to just get somebody connected with their voice um, is really my focus. And then if they want to do more in terms of the tone and the
Changing the
melody, and
tone. Yes, a
yeah,
different. Mm-hmm.
then that's a different coach. That's you.
Well,
So
no, even that connection, even as a vocal coach, you have to
you
be
have to have
connected
that.
with your body. You have to
Yeah.
be in, and as a performance coach, which is what I did, that's what you're doing. What is it you're opening up? Who's the real you? What's behind the voice? And when you talk just the physical aspect of voice, people, I remember when we had to do on your phone messages, and we all went through. Hi, this is Sharon Lee. No, don't like that one. 50 messages, recordings later. No, this one's too soft. This one, like I think people go through that because you don't hear your voice the
Right.
same way the world hears your voice, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're that what do you call it? The thing in your head, the amplifier in your head is a whole different sound. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I love that you're able to use all of these things to support people because you've been through it. You're supporting yourself through that, and uh, I guess, do I say you're still working on your own transformation, or do you
Always.
feel, yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
I can't even recognize the person that I was. Uh,
oh,
my midlife crisis was at age 11. When I thought about my future, it was black. Like there was no future beyond 18. That's the depression I call it. Like that's what I was
mm-hmm,
growing up in. And I just held this little light for my athletics and my academics, and that did pull me through, and I got into college, and it was all it was very helpful to be able to get out of the place that I was living.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, it
What was your best sport, by the way?
well, I at 5'4", this is my most like amazing experience. At 5'4", I made the team at the University of Michigan for volleyball, which is like a
What?
very tall girl sport.
Yes, yes, I played volleyball.
I
Yeah,
I
yeah.
had a very good serve and I could play the back row pretty well. But I didn't play for very long. I played for a year and then I was like, you know what, Amy, you're this athletic stuff. It's fun but you gotta you gotta think about the rest of your life and your career. So, um, yeah. So, but I swam, I played basketball, I played softball, and then I played volleyball. And
Mm-hmm.
volleyball was in high school, we won the state championship at my
Oh,
school. And then
cool. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and then I got on the team at the University of Michigan. So that was a lot of fun and just quite an honor. Just quite an honor to be on a team like that. And um,
But that teaches you something too. Sports really teaches you discipline and a level of confidence that it's just sports does that for you. I don't know how long it lasts, but at the time, the discipline I found that I was able to carry through for a while after I left high school, for a while, and then I got unfocused and then refocused
mhm.
again. But I just a couple of more questions before we go. When you say you didn't speak for a while, what was that age
Middle
timeline?
school. That would have been middle school, like sixth grade.
And did anybody try to pull you out? And
Nope.
no,
No.
yeah.
Nope. Just a quiet kid.
Yeah, you're
You
the
know, that
quiet
lost
kid. She's
quiet
just
kid.
quiet. She's
Hmm.
shy.
Yeah.
Nobody goes deeper than that. And
And
teachers are.
good. I was a good kid. So that was the other thing, you know. So you
Oh,
really get it. If you're a good kid, you really get ignored because it's the problem kids that
yes.
need attention.
The ones acting up
Mhm.
another thing, the word trauma, and I'm bringing this up because I'm so concerned with labels now, because all of these kids with labels, when you work with people, are they labeling themselves as trauma clients, or is there another word? I don't know. These words kind of sometimes take up space where they shouldn't.
I agree. I agree. You know, it's interesting because, again, early in my career, which would have been in the 80s, we didn't talk about trauma. And people,
Mm-hmm.
women especially, who had been traumatized, were given personality disorder labels like borderline personality disorder, when the real issue
Mm-hmm.
was they'd been traumatized
Mm-hmm.
sexually. Um, so it's been good to see the understanding of trauma, because there's personal trauma, sexual abuse, physical abuse, the mental and emotional abuse, financial abuse, whatever it might be. There's that intergenerational transfer of trauma, and we know that that's a thing. And then there's societal trauma. And then there's like the United States right now, that the government it actually has stated their goal in certain ways is to traumatize, like the public servant sector or the rest of the world. I don't always know what they're always up to, but there's a desire to hurt people, which is crazy. And so here's what I think. I think there is a lot of trauma. I think we're seeping in it. If the whole idea of intergenerational transfer of trauma, and that can go many generations, and still have an impact, we all are in the soup, because somewhere somebody's relative has been traumatized or has been in war or something. And
Yeah.
so I think what's unfortunate is the lack of understanding this differential between trauma wounding and attachment wounding, and the the lack of understanding of that there are really pathways for deeper levels of healing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's when people kind of use the trauma label as their armor, their
Yes.
that's what's sad to me and unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. As their armor, and so many kids being diagnosed with ADHD and
Yeah.
what. There's just the labels and
Mhm.
I don't know, but we needed to have them to understand.
Mhm.
But it's like, okay, we have these labels. Can we let them go now and just treat the person? What have you got? Let's
Mhm.
see what you got. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
because the armor, like you're saying, using trauma as an armor. So that is just my thinking at the
Mhm.
moment. But I want to thank you, Amy. You gave us so
Oh,
much.
thank
I'm
you.
glad I was able to pick your brain, and it's such a brain. But man, you're deep in it. We deep
Mhm.
in it. But we thank you, because we need more people like you to be deep in it, to be out there in service and knowledge and growth, and to continue learning. And what do you want us to know about you? What do you want us to know?
That healing is possible, that the research and the science in the area of healing continues to grow and develop, and new techniques keep coming. And they're always getting another layer, like to go from the developmental needs meeting strategy, which I love and I teach, to understanding that there's something that helps the brain at a deeper level. which is the deep brain reorienting. And so all of these things are kind of adjacent. And it helps. I always like to say, like, all roads lead to Rome when it comes to healing. And so these different things that are getting developed are, I don't know, it's like it's exponential in terms of what's really out there. We didn't even talk about somatic work and the body. And
I know there's a lot. There's a
yeah,
lot.
there's so
But
many
maybe,
ways in. So don't give up. Healing is
yeah,
possible. And don't
healing is
give up.
possible. Yeah, you're not broken, you're becoming.
Right.
So I thank you for that,
Mm-hmm.
Amy. I really, really appreciate you sharing all of that. And there's much, much, much more. So I hope our viewers think about that and reach out, ask about if you don't know, because a lot of us don't know. Maybe you can ask social workers or your teacher, or I don't know, listen to this over and over again and read. We didn't even get to your bookstore, but reading, because you're being an avid reader, that I'm sure helps a lot. So reaching out in that way, figuring it out. But there's a lot out there that we can help ourselves with to understand, and then a professional. We thank you, Amy Blake.
Thank you.
All right, group, we'll see you next time. And thank you all for watching. And I know this was a powerful show for you. So just take your time, watch it over and over, put it on repeat. It's all good. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.